Looking for an API with Stripe integrated to create your first digital product, whether it's a SaaS, micro SaaS, a game, a small shop, an online casino, or whatever, you're in the right place. I went through these difficulties and I'm here to share my board plate or pre-plate, whatever you call it, this piece of code. And if this is your need, keep watching this video as I will show you step by step how I created this template and use it in all my projects. Well, the initial idea was to be able to code in real time and record the video, but that ends up being very lengthy. My audience doesn't have this practice, but I've separated the topics here. I will show you step by step how it works, the things we can do, and how I did it. So if you're interested, keep watching the video, pay close attention, pause, and do it as you go. Deal? Then let's go. No stalling. The first thing we always need to do in an API, whatever it is register a user, log the user in, and manage their authentication through a token. And this is definitely already done, so we already have some error handling that are returned from the API. We can also come here, create our user. We can now effectively log in using the token that was returned to us. You will save this on your front end, do whatever you want with it. It's not my account. We also have the option to delete an account. There's also a flow for you to do your entire password reset. In this case, this would be on your front end, that you would take the token, send it to the API, and the API resets your password. Done? Thanks? No, it just isn't invalidating the token, then that's your problem. But if you want to do it, you do it. If you don't want to, you don't. We can now log in with the new password, and the old password no longer works. So that's essential for the user to manage and use things. And we also have the main part here, which is to put money in your pocket, integration with Stripe. So we can generate a checkout link. With a checkout link, we send this, obviously to the front end. The user will land on the page you configure there directly on Stripe, completely making your life easier. So here in Stripe, the user fills in their data and Stripe processes the payment entirely. You will then receive a webhook with the user's data. So here put the status of their subscription active, or if they purchase no product, then you grant access to them. It's up to you to decide how you will do that. Yeah, the callbacks are already configured here, but you also need to go into your Stripe and set this up again. That's not my problem. And we can also, of course, generate a link for the user to access Stripe and manage their subscription, cancel it, or whatever they need to do. So that's it. These are the basic functionalities we have. This project uses Ruby 3.3.0, uses Rails 8.0.1, and also, right, here we have Stripe, locally to be able to receive the webhooks, doing all the tests, right? And here the version point 10.2, 1.22. But then you see the version you will download there. I don't know what he will do. And for all of this to work, we need some environment variables, which are also already configured. But of course, you will replace those with your values, both for you to develop documents and for you to deploy your API in production. So basically that's it. Regarding Stripe, active record, secret key for Rails, URL of your front end, which will be used for emails, and also for Stripe callbacks when redirecting to the front end and such. But there's a configuration for that within Stripe. I don't know if I'll show it in this video, but you probably know what to do. And there's also the configuration for you to send your emails, right? Locally, this won't make a difference, but it's important to know that you need to configure this in production. Possibly by acquiring services like MailChimp, not less important. Now going to the gem file, there are not many changes here. So the few things that were altered, in this case, it's from here. So the active model serializer was added, commodities as well as the JWT and Stripe as the gems of the regular application. And for development and for testing, I added the .inv, which is to read this .inv file in the project root, and also the letter opener, which is to preview the email while we are developing, which is very, very, very useful. Let's now go to the migrations. Here there are 3 migrations that I did, but you can easily do them in just one, especially since there is only one module at this project level. So there's the one to create the user table, add the Stripe fields, and add the password reset field. So basically that's it. And how do you generate these migrations? Ask ChatGPT, it will generate a blank migration. You'll use this migration and add all these fields. Pause the video, look, adds, puts it, and then, the whole happy path, which in this case, right, I'm going to do Rails database drop, but you are going to do what's hit. Rails database create, ready, that's it. Rails DB migrate, it will create your local database. Also, when you make changes to the production database, you run your migrations. Application.rb, the class where you will have the configurations for your application as a whole. Here you will need to configure the secret keybase and active record encryption, okay? Actually, the secret keybase comes by default, but the active record encryption you will have to do manually, okay? So be careful. Routes, there are a few routes, 3 controllers, all of them within the namespace API v1, so you can version this in the future when you need to. So here you have this already ready. So we have the 3 controllers, the authorization 1, which is the serial controller, to perform the checkout part, both to create the customer portal and to create the checkout. And we also have the webhooks controllers, which are responsible for performing all the integration with the Stripe. Initializers, we have here the configuration of Stripe, which is basically where it takes from your environment, variables, the key configurations it needs, and it stays here, config initializer stripe.rb. If I'm not mistaken, when you install the Stripe gem, it will already create this file for you, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Otherwise, you go there and create this. Manually create the file and add the necessary configurations. Important point, you're making an API in Rails, so you know you're going to have issues with QoS, right? Here it's in your hand. You just click on version 8. You will be able to uncomment this piece of code here, and it should work perfectly after you configure to integrate your front end with your API. If you don't use this call strategy, it won't work. So, there's a tip. I'll show you the application controller that here has a very configuration, and important that it is for making the authentication between the authenticated and unauthenticated requests. So there is this method, authorize request. It is a private method where it will be called through the before in action. So before any of the method requests are effectively called, this authorize request will run, and it will also persist in the variable current user. So you can directly access the current user only through the token you will receive through the headers. So all of this will be automatic. How does that work in practice? I'll show you through the delete method. Send the bearer a token that will go to the JWT. The JWT automatically separates through the scripts, and then with this, it sends directly the token. How do I know which account I want to delete when the requests arrive there? Precisely through this here. It will call this authorize request first. We'll take the token, decode it, find the user. If it finds the user, it will set the current user variable, which will have access to all your user data. We also have other methods to do, user management. So we have the registration part, where we return the user with the serializer and the token. We also have login, so you can log in your user, verify them, and it also returns the token. For your flow, otherwise, it will also return the error. You're deleting the account, obviously. You'll first cancel the Stripe subscription, cancel the Stripe user from your strategy of another method to increase I don't know, and it will call the current user, as I mentioned just now. Request password reset. This here is what will send you an email, which you will receive with the link that will direct you to the front end with the token, which you will pass to the API. And here I also left commented, I don't like to leave this validation to return like email found and such. Anyway, when the user requests to receive an email with password reset, and then I always return this reset password description to be sent to your email, and obviously reset password, which is done as follows. Then we search for the password token that was sent to the user and check if the token is valid. If the token is valid and not expired or anything like that, then proceed with the flow to reset your password. Also, here is the user class related to this part of the app controller. So here we have in the user class some email validations to generate the password reset token, check if the password reset token is valid, and also handle the cleaning of the password reset in case it has already been. I'm going to go take the opportunity and show the user mailer. This is the user mailer, which is shown there in the app controller, and it's what will send the email to the user with a link pointing to your front end with the token for them to reset their password. You also need to add your view. In your view, you will configure your email to make it cute, more or less like I left mine. Also mentioned in the app controller, JSON to be token. This class is responsible for encoding and decoding the JWT. Checkout controller, the controller you want to be most used in your system, because this is the one that will bring in money in your pocket. We have a method to create the checkout with the priced data, which you need to have handled on the front end or in your back end. I don't know how you are going to do that either. I receive this priced parameter and I retrieve it here in my controller. You can do it this way, or you can create your own way of doing it. We also came to Stripe when creating the checkout, the callback URL with the cancellation URL too, in case Stripe needs to and requires returning the user to your system. That's why it's important to register the front-end URL, as I showed at the beginning. And if everything is set up correctly for user, you can open Stripe in the same tab of your user, who will be redirected to your front end. This one you might not want to use much, because possibly the user will cancel their subscription through this, so it's better not to use it. With the Stripe customer ID, it's the same setup. Get the current user from the application controller, and then you have access to the customer ID. There's also a validation, in case the customer ID is null, which means the user wasn't created in Stripe, so there's an error for that. But if everything is correct, you will be able to create the session of the customer portal through this method, this request, which will also return the URL there for your user on the front end. And also the same thing, it will open in the same tab because it's already configured. Here the URL of your front end, so when the user returns from Stripe, it will be redirected back to your front end. Now, one of the most important parts, your Stripe webhooks. All of them are received here. There is already the entire identification part of your webhook, signature verification of your webhook, and also all the events you need to manage the subscription and also manage the payment of a single item. When the checkout session with this, you will take your user and do all the updating there, starting their subscription. And if you're wondering what on earth this user ID is, where does this come from? This user ID, you set it here when you created your checkout. So, it's being invoked, this user ID, you can retrieve it here in your webhook to know which user to direct it to. Recurring payments, our happiness, that user who forgets the little card, keeps paying us every month. Here, in this, he will make the update every month, which Stripe will send you every month when the payment. Probably also when the subscription is effectively cancelled. What is part 3? I don't even need to say much, right? And well, taking advantage of this hook about webhooks, I will show you on Stripe the settings I made, the settings you will need to make. It's all very simple. I'm not sure if I should show you, but I'll try to show this here. First thing, you will come here, test mode, and then you already go to Workbench. In the Workbench, you will have the webhooks. Here in webhooks, you will have the signing point registered. If it is not there, you go to add a destination, click here, edit, and you will add these 3 events here. You can add more events, of course, to customize. Just with these 3 here, you can already do all this, if I'm not mistaken, okay? if you are running the Stripe CLI locally. You don't need to configure anything here from Stripe, because every time you log into the Stripe CLI, it will already generate everything for you nicely. And what I'm saying may sound like Greek, but here it is. This is it. And okay, it will return this one to you. Look, your webhook signing secret. You copy this little guy, you copy it and paste it there in your data chain, which I showed at the beginning. And then, do you remember there were 2 other Stripe keys? It will be here. Look, API keys, public shared key, and secret key. So you'll have this here, which you will also put in your environment files. And as I told you, here you can cancel the entire subscription part, manage it, and so on. Everything that is configured behind the webhooks, I will simulate the cancellation here. So cancel the subscription for me immediately without a refund. And then here it has already been canceled. Here we receive the webhooks. So as I hate, right? Custom subscription deleted. And here we can see that the user canceled their subscription, but they are still in the period active. Well, that's it. And if you liked it and are too lazy to pause and keep copying, you can purchase this project at the link below. And of course, someone will definitely say, no, there are no unit tests. The effort you would spend on unit testing, you could create a new feature, and it's much more worthwhile to do an end-to-end test, right? So that's why there are no unit tests. If you didn't agree with me on some point, I understand. In our world of software development and solution creation, we end up reaching the same result in various ways, and what's right and wrong isn't set in stone. But certainly, there's a lot that can be improved. For example, you can implement logic to validate old tokens, which is something not present here, but I always end up doing later. Also, if you need to better manage users, and even users and payments for Stripe account, regarding subscriptions or other plans, you'll definitely need more webhooks. So there are these points that can be improved, for example, and I would be very happy if you leave your feedback below, please. And if you want to follow more projects, more about the journey in the development world, totally no fuss, just like this video was, click on subscribe, and we're in this together. See you next time.